And this is Jenn Gray, and welcome to Be Jennuine podcast. It is my heart that by the end of this episode, you believe that your story matters and that your authenticity is your superpower.
Welcome to the stage, Jenn Gray.
Hey friends, my goodness, it is so good to be back. If you are brand new around here, welcome to Be Jennuine podcast, where we are talking about building and rebuilding a life that we're proud of. If you're looking for a podcast of someone that's been super crazy successful and wants to teach you all the ways, I'm going to send you some great links. Here I am, though. I'm Jenn Gray. I'm a single mom of 4 kids who completely rebuilt my life at 40. And honestly, I just learned a framework of what it looks like to step into real authenticity and understanding how to lead with empathy and finding our core values and all of those things. And that's why this space was even created. If you've been here for a long time, we started this thing back in 2023. I had a really good run until about fall of last year. And it seems appropriate to call today's episode, You're Allowed to Start Over. So we're going to talk all about today of how we start over and what that looks like and what opportunity or tragedy in your life gave you a reason and a desire to actually ponder the fact of, do I have to live the rest of my life like this? So let's just take this podcast, for instance. I started in 2023 with a heart to just help people. I was in the thick of rebuilding. And I honestly started before I was ready. And that's the encouragement to any of you. That's always my first lesson of advice is just take messy action. Just start. And so I'm going to be really candid about even this podcast. So one of the reasons why I gave it a big, huge pause, it's been a longer pause than I expected. It's been almost 6 months now, because it wasn't serving the purpose it originally intended. And I got so caught up in making sure my background was good and I was super polished and ready. And I had to heed my own advice. Don't get caught up in those details that you miss the heart of why you're even doing what you're doing. And so I'm stripping it down. I'm uber focused into the kind of women who I want to help. I know that I can help the person that I was 5 years ago. I want you to think about that. Who were you 5 years ago? What kind of person did you need 5 years ago? And you have gotten yourself to where you are 5 years from now. And that kind of pinpoints the kind of person that you may be most gifted to help. So in this whole podcast I am just here to give you insights, mindset shifts. Just let's be friends through all of this and let's just walk through the journey called life together and let's learn some things together. So I'm super excited for the community that's going to be built around this, for the women that I will get to coach more intimately, and for the opportunities to speak and all those things. But my passion behind this podcast is to give somebody permission to pause long enough to look at your eyes in the mirror and say, am I proud of the life that I'm building? Because you guys, in 2019, 2018, I had the first thoughts of going through all the motions and you're almost living as a shell of who you are. And from the outside, y'all, I look like I had everything. I had 4 children. I had a marriage. I was working at my home church. I had a great position that I kind of had forged through and built, kind of from scratch. And I was leading teenage girls in a way that I had only dreamed of. And so from the outside, everything looked great. On the inside, I was completely disconnected from myself, from who I was and the reality of what I was living. And when I started to be more in tune with those realities, have you ever heard of this phrase, you can't unsee what you've seen? And so when I talk about this eyeballs in the mirror type scenario, I want you to really, really, really get gut level honest with yourself. And it's going to be painful. And if you're like me, you start to kind of inch towards getting really honest about where you are. And then you're fight or flight goes in, and you're like, oh, no, okay. All right, another day. All right, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I don't want to deal with this. I want life to be fun and happy. And we're just going to put this on the back burner. But I want you to really, really, really think through it. Because what happened after 2018 is 2019, I went through a divorce with 4 kids. I lost everything. I lost my job unexpectedly. I had no idea I was going to lose my position in the midst of everything. I knew I was losing my marriage. I lost my community and I lost myself even again, because then I began living a life of pain for about 3 years. I don't know if you've ever been in a scenario where you've just lived life out of just hurt and pain, and like people hurt people. And I had been so hurt. And in turn, I had begun to hurt other people with my actions and the walls that I built and the destructive decisions that I made out of the heart to ultimately protect the people I loved the most, which was my kids. Fast forward to 2023. That's when all of this started, because I had another rock bottom moment where I didn't recognize the eyes that were looking back at me. I didn't even know who I had become. And for the first time in my life, I just, okay, God, I just want peace. I want restoration. I want to feel whole again. I don't want to live in pain. And so I started to rebuild. And so when I talk about the fact that you're allowed to start over, it doesn't always mean that you need to escape where you are. Sometimes it's you just need to actually feel where you are. You need to grow in where you are. And so what I'm not out here telling you is you need to run from your job or your marriage or whatever, or maybe that's the most healthy thing to do, but it doesn't have to be the most healthy thing to do. Because what I learned in those seasons and the years of the pain is I actually pushed people away who could have helped me because I was so angry. But for me, I felt like in 2023, it was a solo job. I didn't have anybody. I want you to understand where I really was. I had built a business with a previous partner, and it wasn't in my name. So when I left the relationship, I left the business, I left everything. I had to completely start over. I had no family, I had no friends, I had no community here. I had an older couple who was my former neighbors who literally became a lifeblood for me to be able to rebuild. And what I learned in that moment of just, desperation, you guys, I literally got onto our local Facebook page, and it was near spring break, and I saw that people were looking for dog sitters. So you guys, I became the neighborhood community dog sitter. I love dogs. I don't have any experience dog sitting, but it wasn't just dog sitting, you guys. Literally, those were my houses from week to week. When I think back to that, when you have to start over, sometimes you literally are starting over from rock bottom. And sometimes you're doing like this decision where I'm just starting a podcast over again because it was out of alignment and I was focused on the wrong things, and it became what it wasn't intended to be. And so then that was a start over. So no matter where you are in life, there may be different levels of rebuilding. And what I want to encourage anyone and everyone listening, and you may be thinking someone right now that's thinking, oh my goodness, I can think of a woman right now who needs permission right now to give herself the ability to rebuild and restart and jump into that passion that she's always had, or to give herself the courage to start that side hustle she's already wanted to go to, or to leave that toxic relationship, or to rebuild this relationship, or fill in the blank. But what I think we all, no matter what age, I'm 42. And so I feel like I've lived 18 lives in one. And in this last 18th life that I'm living, what I think is such a gift is the fact that we have the beauty of changing. We have the beauty of rebuilding, we have the beauty of deciding it may actually take blowing everything to smithereens to choose one brick at a time to rebuild. Because for me in 2023, when I had to first rebuild, I wasn't even sure what bricks I wanted back into my foundation. All I really wanted to do was to go to a secluded island with my 4 children and just live happily and in peace. That's really all I wanted, but that's not reality. There's, school and life and, responsibilities and adulting. And so I had to decide a different plan. And I was already licensed in life and health insurance, so I continued that. I got into networking. And when you're just living through the motions and you're just trying to rebuild. So for me, first was I wanted to build a work ethic into my children. And so I did that. And I understand the power of mindset and of morning routine. And so I was very, 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 very diligent about making sure every single morning I woke up and I moved my body. I read books. I listened to podcasts. And I just kept going, one foot in front of the other. And I trusted that God was going to continue to order those steps as I kept moving forward. And so I'm not sure what kind of faith that you have, but for me, what I understand is, man, people will absolutely disappoint you. People of faith will absolutely disappoint you. I'll probably disappoint you. People are people, but I'm telling you, God was the most faithful through all of these seasons of my life, and my faith became more real than ever, even though it wasn't as public as it used to be before. And as I decided, we're going to choose brick by brick by brick what we're going to put on here. And I had to start with core values of saying, who am I? Who's Jenn? Who really is Jenn? Not my roles, not my titles, not my labels, not any. Who is Jenn? What do I want to be known for? And what do I want the experience to be like when you work with me at this time as an agent or as a mom? And so I want to be kind. I want to be empathetic and know people that have your story is safe with me. I have space for it. I am zero judgment. And I want it to be about excellence. I believe we've got one life to live and we need to live it all but to the fullest. And we all have such an ability to impact other people when we can look at our situations and see that there is always a reason to look outward from our own situation and to help somebody even in the midst. So I'm rebuilding and I'm doing all of this. And so I want you to think about what's one step you can take towards that. Or if you're like me, you just freaking blow it up into smithereens and have to completely start over. I don't absolutely suggest that, but also if that's what needs to be, you're going to be okay. I'm still standing. And doesn't mean you're going to get it all right perfectly, which is the beauty of getting to rebuild. Because literally, I can wake up and be like, you know what? I don't love that this habit is starting to form. I am going to shift my mindset around this. I'm going to have different actions. If I want to go to the gym, then I'm going to make sure I set my alarm and I'm going to get my things ready and I'm going to go to the gym, right? That's putting a habit into action that I know that I want to have in my life. It's why I did 75 hard last year. I just needed a total reset. I needed a kick in the rear, and it was a swift one. And I need to remind myself that I could show up for myself. And so for some of you, if you're rebuilding, you need to just learn, trust in your own ability, in your own intuition, and trusting that if God is stirring something in your heart and a desire, that you're going to be okay. And you can step into that. And so I stepped into networking to build this insurance business and met some great people. And I was asked in 2024, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? What do you want to do in 5 years? I really want to be back on stages. And they're like, well, what are you doing about it? I'm like, I mean, I got a podcast. Have you got any speaking engagements for that podcast? I'm like, well, no. So I started speaking it, just introducing myself as a keynote speaker. And I started getting booked. And here we are today. And is it perfect? No. It's why if you follow me on social media, I'm documenting it. Because there's stories like Jamie Kern-Lima. If you don't know her, go follow her. It Cosmetics, one of the most powerful women that I've ever heard from. Y'all, she went through 5 years of no's and disappointments and rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection. And then L'Oreal bought her out for $1.2 billion. If we all knew that our years of rejections was going to land us $1.2 billion, I'm pretty sure we would all stay in it, right? There's no guarantee of that. But you know what is a guarantee? 1,000% you only ultimately fail if you quit. Otherwise, you're just learning over and over and over and over and over again. And I feel like I am in this hamster wheel of learning. I'm like, okay, God, I get it. There's clearly something else I need to learn because I'm not at this next level. But I am nowhere where I was in 2023. And I want you to think about your own world. Sometimes we can get so focused on where we're not that we forget about where we are. Think about 5 years ago. And then the person that you want to be in 5 years, how does that person act? What do they do? What are their daily habits? And start to grow into that person that you ultimately feel called to be. I'm telling you one of the most powerful stories. I've shared this on the podcast before because when Ed Milet reminded me of this person, and when he gets to heaven, it's his creative imagination. He said, I believe that God created two versions of ourselves. He created this version that he envisioned us with the gifts he gave us and the dreams and the passions. And then there's the version that we actually lived out. And he said, I don't want to get to heaven and meet the version of myself that I was meant to be and be like, I didn't even get close. Dude, I let my doubt totally lead my life. And that image completely has stuck with me forever. I was at a business meeting this morning. We're all going around and sharing, and we're talking about the times in our business when it's super, super tough. And what are some key core stories that you go back to keep yourself from quitting, to keep going? Y'all, this room is filled with successful business owners of all different types of businesses. You know what every single story was about? That one person that their company impacted, and that type of impact is why they're going to keep going, even when the day in and day out mundane business type practices are exhausting. If there's that one other kind of person they can help, y'all, if your world and your life and your business, no matter if you are a plumber, a photographer, a septic guy, a pool builder, an Edward Jones guy, no matter what you are, if it's about the people, there's always reasons to keep going and keep moving forward. And if it's about becoming the best version of yourself, then you've got to understand you may need to strip away some thoughts that aren't serving you anymore. Like imposter syndrome. Let's talk about imposter syndrome for just a second. What's imposter syndrome? You walk into a room and you're scared because you feel like you don't belong there. You're like, oh my gosh, am I going to get found out? Are they going to know that I don't really do this? Guess what? If you start thinking about the person that you're going to impact, you forget about all these worries and fears about you and your ego because it becomes about somebody else. Going live on social media. You want to go live on social media? Go for it. If you're worried about the negative people, don't. Worry about the one person who needs the message that you have. It could be about accounting or real estate or health products or peptides or whatever you do. One person needs you today, but are you going to let the fear of the naysayers get in the way of that? That's why we have to rebuild our thoughts. So it may not be the dumpster fire of rebuild. It may be the messy action of, I'm going to start over with a new belief today. And I'm not going to let that limiting belief or that fear, that imposter syndrome, keep me out of that room one more time. I almost did. I had only spoken to 16-year-old, 15-year-old girls for 15 years. You want to talk about intimidation? You get in front of a bunch of business owners and me start talking about authenticity and rebuilding a life? Not your typical 5-step time management business building skills. It was nothing like that. It's very human driven with the tools to actually reframe and rebuild a life that you're proud of. And what I learned in that moment is I almost didn't step on that stage because of fear of, and then I forgot we're all just humans trying to do this thing. And when you remember that we're all just humans trying to do this thing, you start remembering that those rooms are just filled with other humans trying to do their thing. And it kind of gets rid of the intimidation or the fear that you don't belong. So starting over isn't failure. It's alignment. And what's alignment? Alignment is being able to go to bed at night and say, I lived a life of integrity with the core values of who I am in the direction that I'm supposed to go. That's it. You can't control the success of what's on the other side of it. But what you can control is what you're going to decide that you're not going to do or what you are going to do. And if you've ever gotten out of really hard relationships, the only healing that you can have is that you will no longer choose to unsee what you're seeing. And you're going to be present for yourself in a way that you never have before. And when you decide that is a gift of yourself to say, I am only allowing in my circle what fits where I'm headed. Instead of having fear and saying, I'm not sure, I'm going to let other people take the mic of my life and lead it because I feel like I can trust them over myself. If you've ever felt like that, I want you to take a big pause. And I want you to know that that is not how you have to live. That you can start right now by saying and asking yourself the really hard questions. And I want you to get a journal out. And I want you to talk about, like we used to in high school, right? Or in middle school. What's our future husband going to be like? But what kind of future do you want to build? I'm not talking about, and maybe it is, maybe it's a certain kind of house or certain kind of car or those kind of things. But I want you to think about one of my favorite things I heard from Andy Stanley. He's a pastor and he was saying that, as a parent, they parented in such a way that their kids would want to come back home when they came to college, that they would want to come back home for holidays and for breaks and things like that. And you have to be intentional as a parent for your kids to want to come back home. It's not just guaranteed. And so that completely changed the way I parent my children. They know there's nothing that you can say that's off limits to mom, right? Because that's the kind of parenting I want to be. But I had to decide that I was going to rebuild the way that I was parenting because I haven't always parented that way. So again, a rebuild could be on a macro or a micro level. But the hope is you have the ability to change. Get the right people in your corner, listen to the right things, and make sure that you believe wholeheartedly that you deserve to live a life that you're proud of. That does not mean that it's going to be easy, but it absolutely means it's something that you are headed in a direction that aligns with who you were created to be. And give yourself permission to let go of what doesn't fit you anymore. If there is a friend group that tears you down and brings you into negativity, you've got to protect your mind and your heart. I am not telling you to cut them off. I don't think that's necessarily the case. But you have to protect your time and your energy. It's deciding where you're going and what's going to get you there, and allowing the things to fall off that need to fall off, and you to grab onto the new mindsets and new things that are going to get you to where you want to go. Listen, I believe that your best days are ahead. I'm not just saying that. It's not just some stupid cliche that some random podcaster is telling you. I know what it's like to feel alone. I know what it's like to just think that my best days are behind me. That's why I say all the time, your best days are ahead, because I didn't always believe that. Like, to my core. I'm like, no, Jen. That pastor was right. You're never going to influence anybody ever again. Your glory days are going to always be in that rearview mirror. And then I got shifted from that mindset to say, no. You're not a victim of your story. You are a warrior, and there's absolutely redemption and hope in your story, and other people need to know that. And Jen, you can't give up on you, because other people need to know that they don't need to give up on themselves. That's why I'm here. So this has encouraged you. If you've had someone come to mind, the only reason this exists is to impact someone else's life. I would absolutely be honored for you to hit that share button, pop this in your Instagram feed, tag me with the most impactful statement that impacted you. I would absolutely love to hear it. I want to know your journey. I want to know your story. If you know someone who needs that hand-in-hand help as they're rebuilding their life, y'all, I love getting to one-on-one coach. Let's talk about that. Send me a DM. I'll shoot you that information. See if I'm a good fit. You don't need me, but what I can be is somewhere that it's safe and easier, because you're getting to do that and rebuild with another voice. You're awesome. And I love you. And they may sound so crazy because I don't know you. But y'all, there are people all across this world who hate people for absolutely no reason. I will always choose to love you for no reason until I meet you and find the millions of reasons there are to love you. You guys have an incredible week. I'll see you back next week if you're live on YouTube, or I'll be on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening to me. You guys are amazing.